Hi, we're Quentin Curious Volumes. My name is James. Today, I'm going to tell you about Sodom et Gomorrah by Marcel Proust, or Sodom and Gomorrah by Marcel Proust. This is the fourth volume in the In Search of Lost Time, or Remembrance of Things Past, as it used to be translated. I've been reading this since the beginning of the year, approximately one volume every 2 or 3 months. This is the fourth of 7 volumes, and you can go back and see my reviews or reaction videos to the others if you're interested. So this volume, number 4, is so far, well, okay, let me just briefly summarize what happens in this book. There will be spoilers, but Proust doesn't depend on being surprised by plot twists. Trust me, because there aren't any. Although maybe this one, we'll see. Anyway, so what, at the end of the last book, he did leave us with a bit of a cliffhanger because he's like, he was preparing to go to this party at the Princess de Guermant's house. He didn't know if he was really invited. And while he's fretting about this, he says that he witnessed something um, that he changed the way he thought of something, and he would tell us about that later. And he doesn't tell us, so we had to wait. I don't know how many years it was for this volume to come out back in the teens, and this, if I remember right, this is the last one that came out during Proust's lifetime. But anyway, so what he finds out, what he witnesses, is a homosexual assignation, sort of an impromptu hookup between the Baron de Charlus, and Verdurin, who is a tailor who lives and works sort of in the same apartment complex as the narrator's family and the Duchess de Guermantes. So, Charles is this kind of larger than life figure. He is, I would wager, the character that people are going to remember, one of the characters that people are going to remember the most from Proust, because he's just erratic, he's eccentric, he's larger than life. He goes on these tirades, and then he just like becomes incredibly affectionate. Um, and the character, the narrator, after overhearing, he doesn't watch, but he sees them sort of flirting with each other. He sees them go into a room across the courtyard, and because he's minding his own business, he sneaks over and goes in the next door so he can overhear what's going on. He's not snooping or anything, but yeah, so he hears them going at it. And then for the rest of the book, he keeps encountering the Baron. For instance, they end up at the same party later that day, and everything that he sees the Baron doing, he is now interpreting in light of the fact that the Baron is a sodomite, or an invert, as they're calling it. As that was the term. Also, the term you find in in Freud's writing about homosexuality. Inversion is what he calls it. And in short, Sodom refers to male homosexuality. Gomorrah also comes up as a reference for female homosexuality. So anyway, uh, he's at this party. The Baron is there. The narrator now realizes that his interest in attractive young men is he's actually kind of flirting with them. After the party ends, and there's a pretty great speech that Madame de Guermantes gives at taking leave, which I think I read a section from in an earlier video. But after that long section about the party, we sort of jump forward to the summertime, and the narrator returns to Baalbec, which is a resort town in Normandy, so in the north of France. And this was where he spent a good deal of the second volume of In Search of Lost Time. He went there with his grandmother, who died in the third volume. So this is sort of a bittersweet trip for him, and he has another one of these involuntary memory moments when he arrives in his hotel room and remembers being there with his grandmother and is overcome with grief over missing his now dead grandmother. And her death was one of the most moving sections of volume 3. But it doesn't last all that long. He encounters his old friend uh, uh, Albertine, who he had also met at Baalbek on that earlier trip. And Albertine is there again. Albertine, a young woman with whom he's, I guess, they don't spell it out the way we would these days. Well, who knows what they do these days, but they, they're not like, we're going steady or she's my girlfriend. But they are hanging out a lot, as they say. He feels compelled to tell other people that she's his cousin. She's not his cousin, as an excuse for them being in each other's company so much. Um, they're having some kind of an adolescent relationship with each other. And also, he has a certain amount of jealousy about Albertine because he thinks that she may be attracted to his friend, also nephew of the Baron, Robert de Saint Loup. And later, he becomes very jealous of her because he learns that I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me get to that. Anyway, he's jealous of Albertine. But he's here in Baalbek. He's introduced this weird little tick about the hotel manager who says a lot of malapropisms, and apparently Proust thinks this is hilarious. So there's a whole bunch. Like every time the hotel manager comes in, he's misphrasing things, using the wrong word, and So I guess by the fourth book, he's like, I got to put something in here for the common people that they'll enjoy. I mean, he did do a cliffhanger, so I guess this is really, I mean, come on, what are we? This is what is this, Stephen King? Come on, we're above that. We can handle it. Um, and he falls in while he's at Baalbek, and I don't think he really tells you how long he's there. But this isn't like an American vacation where you spend a week at the shore. When he goes on vacation, it seems they're there for months. He becomes friends with this family, the Verdurins, or family. Well, it's a couple, and they have a salon. They're another society group, and the Verdurins are actually renting their home from another society family, the Cambrimers. The hotel manager calls them it's actually the lift boy, the kid who runs the elevator, calls them the Camemberts, but they're the Cambrimers. And the Cambrimers sort of look down a bit on the Verdurins, and they get invited over to the Verdurins for their salon nights, and they're like judging the way that they've rearranged the furniture. Come on, man. Anyway, but there's a lot of you'll be surprised to learn scenes of dinner parties and social gatherings where characters are coming in and expressing their opinions about, guess what, the Dreyfus affair, and guess what, painters, and there's a fellow named Brichot, who I'm not sure if he was in an earlier volume, but Brichot is a scholar and has a lot of thoughts about etymology, particularly the etymology of place names. So there's a couple of seriously 2.5 page monologues by Brichot talking about the etymology of various place names in northern France. He seems to have a pet peeve about clergymen who write who do etymology wrong, and he'll go on about how, oh, you think this comes from Latin, but it's actually from Old Norman, and it means this instead of that, and it's similar to this place name and that place name, and it does go on. Hilariously enough, the narrator really likes this, and at some points he's like, I tried to bring up to steer the conversation to etymology because I wanted to hear Brichot talk about place names some more, and I'm sure everyone really appreciated that. Let's see. Brichot, oh, also Dr. Cotard comes back. He was in many earlier books. Cotard has strong opinions about everything. And Cotard is there. Baron de Charlus is there. De Charlus starts a relationship of a sort with what is his name? He's a violin player who has been in earlier books. And let's see if I can find what his name is, because it's not. Look. Baron de Charlus becomes friends with this young violin player, and he becomes quite jealous of him, and wants to sort of monopolize his time. The violin player is also in the army at the same installation as Robert de Saint Loup, and the Baron kind of he becomes a bit pathetic in the way that he's attached to this much younger man. And also, it turns out that the younger man later in the book is having some sort of maybe a dalliance with the Prince de Guermantes, who is not the Duc de Guermantes, mind you, the Prince de Guermantes. So I guess that guy's also related to Charles, because Charles is the younger brother of the Duke. Never mind. These people are obsessed with their own status in the hierarchy, and hilariously enough, Charles Morel is the violin player. There's a section about what we now call gaydar, which is pretty interesting. How Morel can detect other inverts when he sees them, and there is a point at which the narrator sees his sort of girlfriend Albertine dancing with her friend Andre. Andre is a female. I may not be pronouncing it the right way, but Andre, her we think platonic girlfriend. Cotard is watching them and says something to the narrator that implies that they are probably romantically involved with each other. This sets off this jealousy about Albertine that sort of parallels Charles's jealousy about Morel, and that this will come back later. But here's a section from one of the very long dinner party conversations where someone calls a person who is not an aristocrat a gentleman. Uses the word kind of the way we use it today, where we call just about any adult man that we don't really know a gentleman, right? And let me see. He turned his If on hearing a chauffeur called the gentleman, a lesson in the use of words only. For in point of fact, I had never made any distinction between the classes. Hilarious. And on hearing a chauffeur called the gentleman, I had felt the same astonishment as Count X, who had only held that rank for a week or two when I said, "The Countess looks tired," turned his head round to see who I was talking about. It was simply because I was unaccustomed to that particular usage. I never made any distinction between working people, the middle classes, and the nobility, and I should have been equally ready to make any of them my friends, with a certain preference for working people, and after them for nobility, not because I liked them better, but because I knew that one could expect greater courtesy from them towards working people than one finds among the middle classes, either because the nobility are less disdainful, or else because they are naturally polite to anybody, as beautiful women are glad to bestow a smile, which they know will be joyfully welcomed. I cannot, however, pretend that this habit that I had of putting people of humble station on a level with people in society, even if it was quite understood by the latter, was always entirely pleasing to my mother. It comes back to his mother all the time. Yeah, so here he's kind of saying, look, the middle class, they're sort of, they have this status anxiety, so they're rude to the people below them and they suck up to the people above them. The nobility are, they're secure in their station, so they'll be nice to the workers. And of course, he's like, I don't care about any of this. This guy is obsessed with it, by the way. Anyway, so there's a lot of going back and forth on the train between Baalbek and the Verdurins. They have a lot of conversations. He does a lot of messing around with Albertine. And then he decides that he has to leave quite suddenly, the narrator that is. And he kind of, he's manipulating Albertine because he's jealous of her. And he says, I'm in love with a woman in Paris. I have to go back. I'm terribly miserable about it. He's never mentioned her before because she doesn't exist. And she's like, well, that's okay. You know, I understand. I have to go to Trieste anyway. And he's like, why are you going to Trieste? And he's like, well, she's like, I'm going to hang out with my friend. Is it Mademoiselle Vinteuil? I think, or maybe it's the friend. Look, if you remember the first volume, and you may not, but in the first volume, at one point, the narrator, who's a young boy, is wandering around outside the home of the deceased composer Vinteuil, and he overhears Vinteuil's daughter and her lover having a homosexual assignation inside. So this is his first exposure to this Sapphism, this Gomorrahism, and he's like, well, that woman is a professional Sapphist, and Albertine is now telling me that professional Sapphist is one of her best friends. He spends the night in agony because he's like, well, she won't love me. She won't be able to resist being with a woman. There are times where she's like absent from him for half an hour, and he's like, she's probably having wild lesbian sex in this half hour with who knows whomever she may have encountered. Like there's this sort of pinging going on. This is before Grindr, right? So they can just sense somehow and then find a broom closet, presumably. Anyway, the guy gets a little bit obsessive. There's a lot of jealousy in here. And if you like reading about jealousy, it's pretty fascinating. If you like reading about social class, if you haven't got enough of the Dreyfus affair, look, this is just a good book. I have enjoyed reading this one more than any since the first one, since Swan's Way. So we're more than halfway done. I'll probably read volume 5. It probably won't be till the new year. But anyway, that is my video on Sodom and Gomorrah. Thank you for watching.